This week, Donald Trump became the first former president indicted on criminal charges. So what does it mean for his biggest supporters? What do they think? Well, pollster Frank Luntz and Straight Arrow News convened a focus group of Trump backers this week. Take a listen to the advice they had for the former president.
If Donald Trump were listening to this focus group right now, what would you tell him?
Focus on what's going on in this country. Stop targeting DeSantis and start targeting Biden. That's the guy that you want out of office.
I would tell Trump that his fellow Republicans are not his enemies.
Do not go to the gutter. Avoid it. It turns off the voters.
I would tell him that as president, he had great policies. He needs to learn to pick his battles.
And we are back with our panel. Thank you for coming in, one and all. Senator Scott Brown, you worked for Donald Trump. You were his ambassador. Terrible, terrible job in New Zealand. What's your reaction to the news this week?
Well, obviously, there's a political analysis and then there's a legal analysis. I mean, you look at the anti-Trumpers, Romney, Bolton, and then you look at some of your own. I just took a note on, Ellie and then McCabe and Van Jones, basically saying that, it's inexplicable, the case that was actually brought. I have some concerns, as all the political analysis folks do, about the statute of limitations, taking a state crime and turning into a federal crime. So he's got some challenges there. But the political side of it, yeah, it gives him a bump. You can tell from the folks that are right there. We just heard. Gives him a little bump, but can he sustain it? He's got to focus on people, the issues, not himself.
Well, that's exactly what we just heard from these Trump voters, this focus group that Frank Luntz did. Fascinating. I'm sure you have similar conversations as a pollster.
Yeah, one thing that I think is so interesting about what these voters were saying in this focus group is that they don't want Donald Trump going after folks like Ron DeSantis. What's always been tough for any of these other Republicans in the field is the asymmetry of Donald Trump can take a swing at them and people go, well, that's just how Donald Trump is. He just likes to throw punches. But if you're anybody else and you criticize Trump, then suddenly everybody goes, oh gosh, you can't, why would you attack someone else within the own party? And so to hear them actually saying, no, I don't want you, Donald Trump, attacking other Republicans is interesting. It suggests maybe that asymmetry is less present. Maybe there is more room for someone like a DeSantis or a Nikki Haley or whatever to take a little bit, to needle Donald Trump a little bit more.
Faiz Shakir, thank you so much for coming. Welcome to the State of the Union Roundtable. You worked for Bernie Sanders as a senior advisor. You know something about fighting in a primary.
Yeah, there's supposed to be good fights in primaries. I feel like, I'm watching what's going on the right, though, and you're feeling like a loss of moral conversation. You used to have moral conversation in politics. You have legal conversations. I appreciate that there's concerns over whether the case and the statute of limitations and other issues are at play, but what happened to moral leadership? Does anyone get concerned that a president who had an affair with a porn star while his wife just gave birth, then paid her a bunch of money to try to win an election and turn off, a potential issue that would have killed him in a presidential election? No, shrug. And I think at that point, you're like wondering, where is moral leadership, even from people on the right? Would say, okay, I have concerns with legal issues. However, morally, this is just not accordant with my values. And what happened to that? What happened to that kind of conversation on the right?
That sailed a long time ago, right? I mean, ever since 2016, it was very clear. This is a different Republican Party, and they were interested in amassing power at all costs. And all that morality talk that we lived through in the 90s and in the 80s, it's gone.
Well, respectfully, Bill Clinton, Gary Hart, let's not take the moral issue and all of a sudden think it's new. There's been indiscretions by previous presidents. My concern is that you're opening up a form of Pandora's box. This has never happened in our country's history, to take something that's a state issue, morph it after the statute of limitations passes into a federal issue. What happens if it's going to have a red state DA all of a sudden wants to take on one of yours? Is that where we're going now? It's going to discourage people from running who are legitimately ready to serve this country, and it's going to create problems down the road.
I mean, Trump led you into this degree of moral relativity, and I appreciate the points that his conduct might be just as bad as this person's conduct. What I would argue, my own perspective, is that his conduct lives in a reign of its own.
Listen, people took that into account when they voted for him. They knew about all his indiscretions. They knew all about his problems. They compared and measured between him and Hillary, and they chose him.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, moving forward, listen, you have a new cycle coming up. Does he have issues to overcome? Absolutely, but so does Joe Biden at 42% and all the things that are happening with him.
One of the issues that we saw this week that still proved very powerful among voters is the issue of abortion, particularly in swing states. We saw what happened in Wisconsin. Now we have this ruling that we talked about earlier in the show. There was one judge in Texas. There was a split ruling, but the Texas judge said he was going to revoke the FDA approval of an abortion bill. How much do you think this is going to, I mean, obviously the short term, this is the policy, but let's just talk politics here. How is this going to play into the political landscape?
I mean, it's going to be huge. You've seen ever since last year in November and with Wisconsin, like voters are not interested in having government officials or judges take away their rights. And let's talk about what this drug is. A drug that's been used for over 2 decades that is safer than Tylenol. This ruling has ramifications way beyond abortion. You are looking at the legitimacy of the FDA and how they approve medicine. Like what's to say they're going to stop here? So what you're seeing is this hyper radicalization of the judicial system that's playing out. And I think the politics of it are going to be bad for the Republican Party, but the policy of it should terrify everybody who cares about science and independence.
What I'm seeing in a lot of my data is that for those voters who are pro-choice, they are much more fired up about the issue of abortion right now than voters who are pro-life. Frankly, in the data, you do not see pro-life voters saying, hey, we scored victories here, we feel momentum, we're going to vote on these issues. Instead, it is much more likely to have a negative effect on Republicans, at least in the short term at the ballot box. And I think that's one of the things that has been kind of, opened up by the ruling in Dobbs last summer, is that it put the issue back in the forefront of the political conversation in a way that it wasn't prior to the ruling, but that is primarily a conversation that Democratic activists are happy to have, while Republicans, it's the third or fourth tier issue for many Republican voters.
I want to turn to the situation in Tennessee. These 2 lawmakers, state lawmakers, Democrats who were expelled because they protested on the floor of the legislature in favor of gun reform. Let's listen to what one of them said.
We're being expelled, not because of a crime, not because of an ethics violation, but because we stood with these young people who are demanding that we act to end these school shootings. And rather than address the issue of banning assault weapons, my former colleagues, the Republican supermajority, are assaulting democracy, and that should change, that should scare all of us across the nation.
Can you respectfully disagree in today's society? And I think I would blame Trump again, is that kind of politics of blood sport, that if you disagree with me, here comes the fire hose of venom, anger, vitriol, retribution, we're tearing you down, rather than to say, respectfully disagree. And I don't say that the left is immune from this at all, but I do think that the right discourse is one of saying, you disagree, here comes a punch in your head.
You served on a
Respectfully,
state
I know you work
legislature.
for Harry and Bernie. I respect them both. I've run 21 times. It's been a blood sport since I ran for assessor, almost 30 years ago. It's always been a blood sport. That being said, you have a democratic process where people voted in a democratic manner, and now it's being called undemocratic what they did. However, listen, it's Easter, Ramadan, and Passover right now. I don't disagree with you that we should find common ground, because this is a very, very serious issue, what's going on with gun violence around this country.
But you don't condone them being expelled, though, right?
Let me finish. We have decorum rules as a state rep, state senator, U.S. senator, ambassador, military. You don't go on the House floor and start banging and taking over.
Then censure them.
Hold on. Exactly right. Should you have expelled them? No. I disagree with that. I think there's a way to find that common ground. Let them have their bully pulpit. You've raised them almost to martyr level now. And now, obviously, one's going to come back through the process. There will be a process. And I think, quite frankly, this helps the Democrats in that state. But listen, the Democrat policies in that state are so far left that, it really won't matter in Tennessee.
I mean, look, I'm glad to hear that you think that expelling them was way too far. And if you look into the history of Tennessee and that state house, like, this actually isn't surprising that it happened, because ever since Republicans have gotten a supermajority there, they have been using that hammer and that cudgel to stop dissent. Well, when you gerrymander the state within an inch of its life, it's hard to say get out and vote when you're splitting up Democratic districts to the point where they don't have that power.
All over the country,
but mostly with
reverse,
Republicans. Mostly with Republicans.
We're going to have to leave it there. I'm sure this will continue in the green room, maybe on Twitter.
It's all good.
Thank you.
This is great political discourse.
It is.
I love this, and thank you.
It is.
Thank you.
Thank you all.